I'm Shannon West. I am the homeless coordinator here in Southern Nevada. I actually work on behalf of all the jurisdictions in Southern Nevada. There's 5 different ones, and together we agree that we can solve homelessness together and that we can put it into it if we all work and partner. And so I work on behalf of all those jurisdictions. We actually are 8,000 square miles here in Southern Nevada that Clark County is responsible for, and there's almost 2 million people now. And then in Southern Nevada, we're made up of 5 different municipal cities and some unincorporated Clark County. So the Strip is actually unincorporated Clark County, not Las Vegas. Downtown is the city of Las Vegas. And I was the assistant director of the Parks Department, and the county manager at the time brought me in his office and asked me if I'd consider this position. That day when I drove to work, I didn't see homeless people anywhere. That day coming out of his office, all of a sudden there were homeless people on every corner for me. And it was, wow, what a difference your filter what a difference it makes when your filter changes, when all of a sudden you don't feel a responsibility for a certain population and now you do, and all of a sudden it's your issue. We've laid off 1 in 10 people here in this valley. This is how serious this situation is in this country right now, where you're faced with, we came here from North Carolina, doesn't really know anyone, and having to make a decision on, do I go to a social service agency and get enough money to drive my car home? And at the same time, individuals are struggling with how much help can I get before I put myself in that situation, and it's tough times right now. So anyway, that just is a piece of, I think, what's going on in the community, that some of us seem so disconnected with what's going on around homelessness, and then a neighbor calls you and their house is in foreclosure, or your brother needs to sleep on your couch, and all of a sudden it's a real deal thing. And it's not just the guy on the corner holding a sign anymore that's homeless. It's people who live next door to you and down the street and are in your civic organizations or your Rotary Club or whatever. That's who's homeless now. That's what makes it really important, is because we, I think, unlike any place else in the country, have decided that it is that important that we can partner together no matter where the city line stops and starts, and address our homeless and our homeless situation with one plan, and with joining our money together to make some really good decisions about what to do with that. So another piece of what I do is, we've had so much success with this regional partnership to end homelessness that the Regional Planning Commission, which is who I work for, the Regional Planning Coalition, has created now a committee on youth, whose purpose it is to do the same kind of cross-systems collaboration to make sure that every young person between the ages of 14 to 24 is connected to school or work, based on the work out of Connected by 25 out of Stanford, that any kid that's not connected by the time they're 24, we lose them to other systems forever. And so I work on behalf of those 2 projects to bring people together. And I kind of think about my job as being Tom Sawyer. I just get paid to help make other people paint the same fence. That's kind of my job. Or the other thing that when I got into this role that I was really invested in doing is creating a system that did not need me in it in order to function. So, I mean, in times like this, you don't want to put yourself out of a job, but that's what you're trying to build. When you're really, truly a community convener, whether you're functioning as an individual or as an organization, as an intermediary, what you're trying to do is get people to come to the table to collectively own an issue to where you become irrelevant to that process anymore. And so that's what we're working towards, is how do we develop a system that has all the jurisdictions working together with the provider community, and a place for advocates and clients to be involved themselves, so that constantly we have checks on the system that are consistently producing the best outcomes for the clients that we're working with. This is a community of people that moved here to raise their families for a certain period of time, came here to capitalize on the growth that we were having, the fact that our unemployment rate was below 2%, one of the lowest in the country, and then in a year we're up to 10%, came here to capitalize on that, in a community that really was built in these master planned sections where you basically can come home, go through a gate, come home, click your garage door opener, go inside your house, and never see a neighbor and never be connected to anyone. And so it's kind of this disconnected neighborhoods and disconnected communities when you really truly think about it. So how do you create an ethic in a world like that? Homelessness is the fact that really 75% of our homeless, this is their first time ever being that way. That had been what our research showed in 2007, but not until other people started experiencing this did it really drive home. Oh, really? So it's not a new phenomena, it's the same phenomena that people become homeless, and most of them move in and out of that in a fairly quick amount of time. But having the community take a look at that in a different way and understand what that real face of homelessness is. It's a term that we think through here in Southern Nevada, and actually we have another effort that talks about community ethic too. One of the things that we struggle with, I mean, we're on the first of every worst list and on the last of every best list when it comes to teen pregnancy and suicide and education and health issues and a myriad of other things. One of the things that we know that we need to do here in this state is also develop a community ethic that values education, that drives us to go out and advocate for money for education and for a school district that supports its teachers. It's basically getting everyone on your team around an issue so that it becomes just understood that that's what needs to happen. I think the biggest growing experiences that you have as an individual is when you figure out how to manage yourself personally. I think one of the things that is the most important, and I think that it's important for anyone, is that you're really only as good and only as successful as your brand name is, the name that you carry with you. So making sure that you take care of that, not because you want everyone to think that you're great, but because you want to have enough credibility that when you come to the table and ask people to be involved in something, or ask them to change the way they do business, or ask them to think about things in a different way, the credibility and the reputation that you bring with you is one of someone who does the right thing for the right reasons and is there about the issue and not about themselves. And I met a young man when he was 14 years old. He came into the facility to live there. He had been up at our juvenile incarceration facility up in Caliente and came home. And when he went home, his parents had moved, and he never saw them again. I was his counselor for a couple years. Then I lost touch with him, and I was driving in my car, and he ran across the street. He was like 19 at that time, so I got back involved as a mentor with him. He's 31 now, and he has been out of prison for 2 years. He is working at another nonprofit here. He was Employee of the Year that year. He bought his first car, has his own apartment. He's doing fantastic. Certainly when I got sick this last year, he was there every day to help me when I really needed the help. There were days that I couldn't get up to get any water. There were days that I couldn't get to go pick up my prescriptions, and there was not one day that he was not there to do that. So it's amazing how your life kind of comes this full circle. He'd be so embarrassed about us telling all this. He basically, you know, almost had tears in his eyes, and he said, if I would have been in prison when you were going through all this, I would have never forgiven myself. So, I mean, that was a huge deal for him to be able to be there, to be able to do some of the reparation for things that he thought that I gifted to him, which really, considering his life, they might have been big things, but they were such small things for an adult to do. But it's amazing how those tiny things really affect someone and really can change someone's life. My mom had breast cancer, my grandmother had breast cancer, so I guess I always thought I could get breast cancer. And I didn't have any issues, and that was in July. And in December of that same year, I found a lump that I thought was a lump, and by March, when we finally went in and decided that I needed to have double mastectomies because I carry the gene for cancer, which means I'm gonna have it in both, I had 3 tumors and 10 infected lymph nodes, so stage 3 cancer. And do you know what? I don't think it changed the way that I live my life. I think ultimately I live my life in the same way, but I think it changed the way I live life every day in a little bit of a different way. But I think it also had my friends think about the way they live their lives in a different way. When the mortality of someone you're close to is challenged, you start going, wow, if that was me, would I have done everything I needed to do? Would I be in the place that I need to be at and have no unfinished business? And so I think that there were lessons in it for everyone.